So with you're saying about Peter had. So you believe Peter had some sort of base there with people that he dealt with?
Yes, he would. Obviously, if he had been in Rome, as many Protestant scholars accept with us, then he no doubt would have had other Christians around him to help him function.
Right, but is there any documentation related to that? Because I find it strange that they say that happened. That, Peter was there in order to be able to start the church and be the first pope. But then we have these writings from these church fathers like after him. But it's quite strange that we have the Gospels. Then you have a bit which seems to be disappeared. Then we have all the writings from the church fathers after. So if Peter was really starting the church as a pope, you think all the writings would be there for that as well?
So I think there were a lot of writings. The reason we fortunately got the New Testament is because they were recognised documents as being inspired by the Holy Spirit, and then they were read at Mass, at the liturgy, and that's how they got preserved. If they weren't going to be read at the Mass, then they're just documents whom someone will keep in a church here or there, but eventually they'll get lost over the passage of time. So we're fortunate these are liturgical documents which get read at church services. So there'll be many letters that were written by many apostles to many people, and they've just disappeared over time. So when we start, we get a few documents in the first century that are not New Testaments, and they increase over the centuries. So we can't say for sure about our positions on a lot of these things are demonstrated from documentary evidence from the time. If it were contemporaneous, it'd be great, but it isn't always. One thing I think is contemporaneous, Peter's first letter is written from Babylon, right? He says, I'm writing to you from Babylon. Now it can't be Babylon over in Babylonia, over in Baghdad. It's just too far away. Peter went to Antioch. He was the head of the church there for a time before he went to Rome, where he was martyred. No way is he going over to Baghdad. But Babylon was a code word for Rome. And that's why I think as a contemporaneous statement from Peter, from the New Testament, that Peter was in Rome. But I know it says Babylon and not Rome, but I think it's a good conjecture.
Right, so what you're saying is that even the Roman Catholics or your church, you don't have any definite documentation of what actually Peter did.
No, all we have is, and this is the church, what the church says, through the church, it's like, because it's a continuous institution, the teachings carry on, they're transmitted through the institution. It's like the collective memory of the church. Like institutions have a kind of collective memory because people do the same things all the time. We've always thought that Peter was martyred in Rome under Nero. Just the fact that documents start appearing saying that is helpful, but it was always a sense the church had of itself and about its founder.
But that's the thing. So I know Catholics say that Peter is the founder, but it sounds to me that they're just adopting it. That they're not actually using historical or documentation evidence to actually establish it.
You know, here's a real problem, and it's a fact. When you get down to the 2,000 years ago, there are just very few documents to tell us anything about those times, whether they're Christian related or not. And we have to live with that fact. Jesus, it's his fault. He chose to come 2,000 years ago. We could have come in the age of the internet. Now he's made it tough for us, but I think that again testifies in an indirect way, an oblique way, to the Catholic Church, because we've got to be able to know the truth somehow, and we can only know it either through a strong historical record, which we don't have because it was 2,000 years ago, or through some other mechanism. And the only other mechanism could be a church which has continuously existed from his own time. So yes, you're right. If you were a pure historian saying, look, how do we know Peter was in Rome? How do we know he was martyred under Nero? How do we know he was the head of the church? All these questions that can multiply. You're right. We cannot say on an historical basis that we can give the same probative level that we could about the existence of Napoleon.
Yeah.
Absolute fact. We only have the materials we have.